In this lecture, we're going to explore ethics and when you should avoid doing a reading and who you should avoid doing readings for. This is always a really important topic in the psychic development courses that I teach because people will often just go out willy-nilly and start doing readings for people, and it's really important to understand that sometimes if you give someone a reading at a certain time or certain people that you give readings to, you can actually be causing some damage to yourself and to others according to universal law. So this is just a way to help you give readings in the most supportive and safe way possible that's going to be for your best and highest good. So when should you avoid doing a reading? It's really important that you never give a reading for yourself or anyone else when you've been tired, when you're vulnerable, when you're raw, when you've had a shock yourself. It's really important to have boundaries when you're doing readings. So say, for example, I have had my own personal experience where something's gone wrong in my life. I will often, and it's like a terrible tragedy, like I've heard some bad news about a friend of mine, I will cancel my appointments for that week just to give my energy time to settle. And while I don't like inconveniencing my clients and I always feel really bad, for me it's better that my energy is completely clear and that I'm giving them the best possible reading. So if you've got a client booked in or you've offered to give someone a reading and something really awful's just happened to you, please give yourself that space and ask that person just to postpone it for a little bit and apologize, just so that you know that you're giving them the best reading possible and you're also not damaging yourself and giving yourself time to recover from whatever crisis or thing that's happened to you. It's also important to avoid doing a reading if you've been consuming drugs or alcohol. The reason being that it can cloud you and it can also make you more open to dark entities coming in. So if you've been drinking, then please try not to do readings. Or if you're taking heavy drugs, please try not to do readings. A student from my other course actually asked me if she thought the medication she was taking was stopping her from connecting. And I said, well, it depends on the medication. Like if you're taking a medication that you've had for a long time and it doesn't make you feel like a zombie and it's just normal medication, then that won't necessarily interfere. But if it's something that really impacts upon you and makes you feel tired or worn out or exhausted, then it is probably not a good idea to be taking it and trying to do readings. Just for those reasons that you want to make sure that you're not opening up to dark entities, and also you might get some cloudy readings. Who should you avoid reading for? There's a lot of tarot readings that go on at hens parties and things like that, and I completely take my hat off to readers that do that. But for me personally, I avoid reading for people who have been drinking. And it's not that I don't love a glass of wine myself, because I do, but it's more that when people have been drinking, they can bring in dark energy, they can pick up dark energy a lot quicker, and so they can get a little bit darker in their intensity and they might not be as open to spiritual information. So I avoid reading for people who have been drinking and people who are hungover. So if someone comes to me and I can see they're really badly hungover, and look, this has only happened to me once, I will tend to look at oracle cards instead of tarot or do something a bit more gentle, because if you're hungover, you're going to be vulnerable and exhausted and tired. Your energy's going to be all mixed up and you might not be receptive to any information that comes through. So it's good to avoid reading for people when they're being really hungover or they're really sick. I also avoid reading for people when they're sick. So if someone contacts me and says, oh, hi, I've got bronchitis and I say, look, wait till you get better. Again, it's the same thing. You want your person to be that you're reading for to be as clear as possible. And for yourself, obviously, if you're sick, you want to make sure that you're as clear as possible. So, and you also want to avoid getting sick. So if someone comes to you and they're sick, you want to avoid getting that contagious illness from them. Try to avoid reading for people that are sick. The other people I say it's not good to read for, and this is an ethical universal law thing, is reading for people who are not present. Children are different. If someone says what's happening for my children, you can do that for someone. But if someone says what's going on with my sister's boyfriend, then you can't do that reading. Like the sister has to give permission for herself, A, to be read, and B, for the boyfriend to be read. The only exemptions to this is if it directly affects you. So if someone asks you, for example, how's my husband's business going to go? That's fine, because your husband's business will affect you. So what's my husband's sister's business going to do? Well, that's not really any of your business. So it's not good to ask, like your husband's sister needs to come and get a reading for you. So for me, that's when I put the boundaries up and say, look, no, I can't peek in and cheat on other people's lives. You probably wouldn't like it if someone did that for you. So please only read for people that are present unless it directly affects them. Now, boundaries is very important. I always say, look, please try to only read for people that respect readings. You don't need to prove yourself to anybody. So if someone says, oh, I don't believe in tarot, tell me what's going to happen then. You don't need to prove yourself to that person. If they don't believe in tarot, that's a personal choice. You don't need to prove them wrong or prove you wrong. And the other thing I avoid is giving away too many free readings. This will drain you. So exchanges are something I love. You can offer to give someone a reading if they give you something in return. But especially while you're learning, you don't really want to go and rush out and give all your friends free readings because you might damage your confidence. Especially if you know stuff about your friends and it feels like it gets a little bit uncomfortable, you want to make sure that you're just starting with beginners, like practice exchanging, and then you can build it up to something where you feel confident enough to read for people. But as I said, I'm very big on boundaries with readings. Really try to avoid reading for too many people for free. I feel like that's something that can really drain you. Other clairvoyants feel differently and are happy to give away their services, but for me, I'm a big fan of exchanges. So in this lecture, we've covered ethics and when you should do a reading and who you should avoid reading for. Please understand this is all personal choice and you don't have to follow these rules and rituals. This is something that I teach my students to help them. But as always with these lectures, just take on board what resonates with you.